technology, very briefly. I mean, there's obviously a lot of detail that could be gone into here, but let's just go through the basic facts. So, Mars is far away. You can see it at night, but yeah, it looks like a dot, and therefore it's quite far, approximately 200 million kilometers. So it can be as close as 55 million kilometers, can be as far away as about 400 million kilometers. This means that light takes between 3 minutes and 21 minutes to get to Mars. That's the distance that you need to travel. That takes about 7 months with currently existing technology. The Curiosity rover, for example, which, as we speak now, I mean, people often ask me, is there internet on, how can you move to Mars if there's not going to be internet? Of course there will be internet. I would never volunteer if there would be. Of course there's internet on Mars already. You can go online now and watch the Curiosity rover, whatever it's doing. The images get sent back, the data gets sent back periodically. Like, there is a rover on Mars, roving around, doing science basically at a very slow rate. It's not a human. It's controlled by huge teams of humans. There's no one there to fix it if it breaks. So obviously every move that it makes is carefully considered and decided by huge panels of experts. So yes, there's internet on Mars already. So a day on Mars, strangely, is just 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth. So crews living on Mars will be able to live a largely Earth-like life. Sunrises, sunsets on a period of 24 hours and 40 minutes. The rest, again, iron oxide is rust. Basically, when iron gets oxidized, it turns into rust. It's red-orange color. That's the main component of the surface sand. That's why it's the red planet. So the rest of the stuff I can summarize in a story. Let's say we were on Mars right now, and we had to, there was a breach in the wall. Maybe you've watched The Martian. There's a leak. We don't have suits. We don't have enough suits. Sorry, guys. This wasn't well planned. We have to escape and go to a different part of the settlement, which is across the road, let's say. Would we make it in the clothes that we're wearing now? You might say no, you might say yes. I would say maybe. Somebody fought to get out that door. No, so the point is you wouldn't die immediately. Actually, astronauts in the space station have been exposed to pure vacuum. Well, it's not pure, hard vacuum basically in the space station. Up to over a minute somebody was exposed due to an accident, no permanent damage. So chimp I'm a physicist, I don't have to worry about the ethics of doing experiments like this, but anyway, some chimps did obviously die in the making of this information and knowledge. So chimps can survive 2 minutes in vacuum, but not 3. So you've got about 2 to 3 minutes, or let's say 2, to get across the road. The temperature is not really the worst of your worries, sitting at about -50. So I think wearing the clothes we're wearing for -50 is not going to kill you as you run across the road. Taking a breath of carbon dioxide, which is 96% of the atmosphere on Mars, might kill you because you would pass out and then die unless somebody helped you across. So you don't want to take too big a breath of air either when you leave this room, because the pressure on Mars is so low. It's less than 1% of what we're experiencing now, which is like being 30 kilometers up into the stratosphere. So it's like almost out of the atmosphere. That's how low the pressure is. So your eardrums are going to be damaged unless you stick your fingers in your ears, which, by the way, is a perfectly acceptable way of dealing with that. Your eyeballs, the water on your eye, the liquid on your eyes will start to evaporate at that very low pressure. So you might want to close your eyes or just be ready that they'll be a bit uncomfortable as you run across the road. Other than that, you're good to go. So, don't take too big a breath of air, because at that low pressure your lungs will expand and possibly rupture. So just a small sip and then crash. So the point is, as my Russian supervisor said, looking at the temperature, it's really not that bad on Mars. I mean, on Venus you have temperatures of 500 degrees Celsius plus on the surface. The rain is sulfuric acid. We don't know of a material that can withstand that climate, never mind the human body. So the Russians sent a probe which landed on the surface of Venus, which managed to take one image and send it back before it melted. They knew it would melt, obviously, but they were hoping to send some data back, which they did. So of the two neighbors, Mars is definitely a better candidate.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Lift off. Falcon 9 is clear to towers. GC move to section 10.66 to secure the path. Being working.
First stage propulsion is nominal. Vehicle's programming damage.
seeing live footage of Course I Still Love You, our drone ship, waiting for the, here's the engine, slow it down, lights are deployed.
Landing stage 1 of the rocket in the sea, importantly, because you need that kind of angle and that kind of distance to actually safely land it again when you're looking at the kind of speeds you need to lift heavy payloads that contain humans and other cargo. Landed at sea, this reduces launch costs by 30%. So tick. Second aim of SpaceX, to establish a city on Mars. You can imagine what's around the corner, and just last month, SpaceX announced plans to land the Dragon, the Red Dragon. This Dragon capsule was delivered successfully to the International Space Station. The Red Dragon will be launched by SpaceX in 2018 to be landed on the surface of Mars to demonstrate the kind of technology needed to take humans to Mars. Elon Musk doesn't mess around, so watch the space up till 2018, because the technology needed to land humans will be demonstrated by him, I believe, in 2018, plus minus some postponements. So, we can watch it again. So this just goes to show that what's impossible today can definitely be possible tomorrow. It just depends how much imagination you have and how much money. So what kind of technologies do we need to get to Mars? A rocket? Actually, SpaceX, once they have tested the Falcon Heavy, so that rocket you saw there was the Falcon 9. The next in the range is the Falcon Heavy, which will have a capacity to launch sort of 10, 20, 30 tons. That's the kind of order of magnitude you're looking at for humans as well. From Earth up into low Earth orbit, from where you can depart to Mars on a 7-month journey. You can see now why the payload weighs a number of 10 tons, because just the air that you breathe is almost a ton. And the same mass as the food that you eat. This is 4 people during 7 months. And this is really the bare minimum of water that you need. You don't get to shower or bath, it's wet wipes. So basically that's your drinking water for 4 people for 7 months. So when you land on Mars, obviously landing, so launch is the dangerous part and the expensive part. Landing is dangerous and expensive, but the landing technology will of course be demonstrated with cargo missions a number of times before the humans even depart. Lockheed Martin has already done a preliminary feasibility study for the Mars One project. As I said, there will definitely be internet. You can't do science without internet. Not good science anyway. So the satellites will be launched ahead of time of the departure of the crew, 4 years before, put into orbit around Mars. The rovers will arrive 2 years later. They will look for a location and actually set up the central part of the settlement, which you can see in the picture there. So the rovers are important because when the first crew arrives, they will have already set up the rovers, the central part of the habitat, which will be oxygenated, pressure regulated, and temperature regulated. So you'll have your bed, your mint, and your turned over sheet waiting for you. So, and the study for the actual settlement has also been already embarked on by Paragon Space. So that's kind of how it will look inside. There you can see that the plants also need to grow inside. I think if you've watched The Martian, you'll know that the plants can't survive on the surface of Mars, neither can humans. So all of us Earth beings will be under the roof of the shelter, actually also underground, to protect us from the radiation from the sun, because Mars does not have a thick atmosphere like Earth does. And the way to protect yourself from this radiation is actually to live underground. So yeah, it's a one-way trip to live underground on a planet 200 million kilometers from Earth. But it looks nice inside, and there's a big screen TV. And basic laboratory facilities, a garden, maybe an insect farm, maybe some fish growing in a pond. There are many proposals and many research teams working on exactly how we will eat once we get there. But it's like a subsistence farming community, so we will be aiming to be sustainable. The sustainability of the settlement is also dependent on what's on Mars. So what is on Mars? Well, the Curiosity rover has discovered that there's 2 to 3% of the sand by mass is H2O. This is vital for the mission. I mean, NASA was planning back in the early 2000s to send people on a 3-year return trip, which would mean drinking water for 1 year there, 1 year on Mars, and 1 year back, without any chance to refuel that water. So as you know, Cape Town was once established as a refueling station for exactly those reasons, that at the beginning of the technology, you don't have the capacity to bring all the supplies that you need, and you need to stop and refuel somewhere, and that's exactly what Mars could become for future planets, but that's another story. There is water on the surface of Mars. Also, there's indication that valuable ores will be available on the surface of Mars. Not valuable in terms of finance, obviously, that's one of the things I look forward to, but valuable in terms of utility. So the resources will be used for the sustenance of the society and not for somebody to make profit over somebody else. And impact craters are a good indication of valuable minerals, because the heat of the impact from an asteroid or whatever can often create like important complex molecules that we may need in industry or in building new computers or whatever we want. We'll bring 3D printers along, of course. There's a 3D printer already in the space station, also an espresso machine, also flowers. Okay, the first flower bloomed in the space station last year, so it's possible to grow plants in space, therefore definitely possible on Mars. Yeah, and 3D printing is really a revolution for space travel. So, I hope I've convinced you that the technology pretty much exists. So you might still have reservations about why are we doing this, who exactly we want to send on this one-way trip to Mars. That's where we're coming from a few years ago, after the State of the Nation address, as usual. So I think the most shocking part for people when they first hear it is that you won't come back. I mean, that generally takes people like at least 10 minutes or maybe max to actually let it sink in, because they keep asking, you're not coming back, you're not coming back. I'm like, this is not a unique thing in human history. None of us are where we are today, or we wouldn't be here without somebody having made a one-way trip. So according to the fossil record, Homo sapiens emerged in Central Eastern Africa. I'm presuming some people here still live in Central Eastern Africa, Southern Ethiopia to be precise. If you are from there and you're only in Cape Town visiting, I'll give it to you. Maybe no one made a one-way trip in your family. If you are not, then somebody made a one-way trip, whether it was on foot, on horseback, by kayak, by ship, by train, by airplane. However, your ancestors moved to the part of the world where you're currently living. Maybe it was your parents, maybe it was you. That's what humans do. They dream, they look out at the horizon, and they go there to see what's there. And in this era where the surface of the earth is mostly explored, I mean, you don't need to go further than your phone and Google Earth to see what it looks like in that part of the world. So for people born with that explorer's blood, and I believe all of us are, what is the next frontier? That's clearly Mars, as I've laid out for you, because other places that may be nicer are just much too far away. So I think exploration always drives innovation. I mean, this is just my own opinion, but I think the Industrial Revolution to some extent was the result of those first African explorers walking north out of Africa, discovering Europe, finding that it was cold over thousands of years, realizing that they needed some kind of agriculture to sustain them through the winter, fires, warmth, etc. Industrial Revolution. I believe that going to Mars will also trigger new technologies beyond our wildest dreams. So at first I'm thinking of recycling. So life on Mars will be a precious resource, and every single complex molecule needed to sustain life, also a precious resource. So I think a deep appreciation for life will manifest itself on Mars, and I really hope and believe will filter back down to Earth, because we've become far too careless in the way that we live here. Thinking that resources are infinite, when now it's becoming painfully clear with all 7 billion of us competing for air, food, water, that resources are not infinite, and we need to carefully justify our use of those resources and contribute back to society and not just consume. Solar power, everything will be solar powered. So those are the first two things that come to mind, but what else? Who knows? For me, of course, I'd be prepared to give up my life on Earth for the possibility to contribute to new science. Not just sort of incrementally new science, but completely new science. We might even discover evidence of life on Mars. This life will probably, in my opinion, be related to us. Maybe it's fossilized, maybe not. Certainly not on the surface, not big, there are no big life forms on the surface as far as we've seen. We've been observing Mars for almost 50 years now. Where life could be living is under the surface where we haven't looked, or possibly there's fossilized life from a time when Mars had oceans, because yes, I don't have time to go into all this history, but Google it. So Mars once had oceans as far as we can tell. So there's a high probability of finding fossilized evidence of life. This would be the biggest possible contribution of science to humanity. Are we alone? that is the most profound possible thing science can do, in my opinion, and of course I'd be prepared to give up my life to contribute to that discovery. So I'm not the only one talking about extraterrestrials. This is real, I give you the reference. So Pope Francis advised him that the discovery of extraterrestrial life is imminent, and he went ahead and made that statement. Dr. Ellen Stofan, who I had the pleasure of meeting last year when she visited Cape Town, to verify scientific discoveries usually take 10 to 20 years before the information is released publicly when everything is verified to a suitable extent. So this September, things to watch. SpaceX will be announcing their plans for a city on Mars at this conference, and I'm extremely excited to say I will be there, also presenting my research and stalking Elon Musk for the max, because he will be there announcing plans for the city on Mars. So far we don't know anything about the structure or the plan or anything really. This will all be released at the conference in September in Mexico. So for those who are still skeptical, I say watch the space. Always seems impossible until it's done, in the words of a legend who we were lucky enough to share time with on this planet. So yeah, the crazy ideas of today often become the reality of tomorrow only because of the people crazy enough and brave enough to have those ideas. So as I've said, I think it's not only possible but imperative for us to see the bigger picture. And my idea of the bigger picture, at least, is that humanity will, in 20 years, be extended beyond the surface of the Earth to Mars.
It's the longest applause we've had at any show. So amazing talk. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of questions. I think the one question that everybody had was, why the hell are you going? I think he answered that question very adequately. But I'll open it to the floor on who else may have some questions. Back there, Don.